Hello, I am Deepa and I welcome you to Talent Vibes. Let's talk it out, an OCBS initiative. Today, we are very happy to have our today's guest, whose name is Neha Wagh, who is a L&D professional. Let's welcome her on the show. So, welcome on the show, Neha.
Thank you.
This is a small gift from Talent Vibes team.
Thank you.
There is one more special gift. This is from Citymali Gardening Solutions Private Limited.
Thank you.
So Citymali Gardening Solutions, it is a Pune-based firm and they are into garden maintenance. They rent out plants to your offices or to your residents. Also, they take care of AMCs as well. So if you have any such requirement, please contact them. Their details are given in description box. With over 12 years of experience, leading learning and development, organizational development, and talent management across healthcare, manufacturing, and edutech, she specializes in designing impactful interventions that drive individual, team, and organizational growth. As an NLP master practitioner, she brings a unique perspective to leadership and personal development, integrating behavioral insights with strategic L&D solutions. Her expertise spans e-learning, L&D technology, learning journey design, and leveraging analytics to create data-driven, scalable learning programs. Throughout her career, she has successfully led key OD and talent management initiatives, including culture studies, performance management frameworks, grade structures, succession planning, and competency frameworks across hierarchy levels. Additionally, she has driven organizational design projects, identified and developed high potential talent, and crafted large-scale learning interventions that deliver measurable business impact. Partnering closely with business leaders, she focuses on understanding organizational challenges and crafting tailored L&OD strategies that align with business objectives. Passionate about fostering leadership, innovation, and a culture of continuous learning, she strives to create transformative experiences that drive sustainable success. Beyond work, she is a passionate writer and lover of music and a foodie at heart. So to start with, Neha, we got to know from your introduction that you have done your bachelor's in computers and then you did your MBA in HR and then you started your career journey.
Yeah.
So there are two things that I would like to understand. Why you thought of pursuing MBA HR after doing bachelor's in computers? And secondly, how the career journey started after pursuing your MBA in HR?
Okay. It's actually an interesting story. So prior to my bachelor's in computer application, prior to my graduation, I was very passionate about pursuing my career in the field of English teaching.
Is it?
Yeah. So, and I was pretty serious about it.
Okay.
So I thought that, and I used to, take classes at home where I used to teach students between the ages of, say, 15 to 18. So around between 7th standard to 12th standard. And that was all, it was pretty established in my mind that I would continue my career doing that. Okay. It really interested me. And at the same time, I was also drawn towards technology.
Okay.
So choosing my graduation was a very well thought of decision, where I felt that, a perfect blend of management in general, because I was running a mini business on my own at a young age. And that earning was something that I was really proud of. So I felt that maybe, a blend of management and a blend of technology would probably be available in a graduation like that, BCA. And which is why that decision. However, when I started my journey in my graduation, over the period of time, I realized that I am drawn more towards the management subjects and less towards the technical subjects, which were like proper coding languages. So that was something that I clearly didn't find my peace in or my love in. And then I think the journey ahead was pretty much clear to me. Subjects like principles of management or organizational behavior or even HR for that matter, really interested me.
Right.
And having that innate sense of teaching or training within me, I thought that MBA HR would be the best decision that I can take. So, and this time I think it was a wiser decision than the graduation decision that I took.
Definitely.
So
as you grow old, probably things become more clear in terms of what is it that you're liking and what is it that you can do.
Yeah.
So I always feel there are two things, what you're good at and what you're enjoying. So both is equally important, I feel.
Yeah. I think that is so true and so wise. I mean, what you're good at and what you're enjoying.
Right.
Personally, I feel it should become one at some point in time.
True.
For me as a person, it's extremely important that I love my work. Because, you know, that's where you spend your most time on. You
Correct.
spend around 10-12 hours a day doing what you do.
Correct.
And if you don't like that, it's super unhealthy.
It becomes so difficult.
Yeah. And you won't be able to sustain for long if you don't like what you do.
True.
So choosing my career path in MBA HR as my field of study was, I think, one of the best decisions I've made in my life. And just like the way when I began my graduation journey, you know, I understood my own interests better over a period of time. A similar thing also happened when I pursued my post-graduation. So while I was pursuing my post-graduation, it sort of was established in my mind that because I have that innate sense of passion for training and teaching, L&D would become the right choice for me going ahead.
Correct.
So that's where my interest sort of took a
just
turn.
to sum up, when you thought of becoming a teacher, so how old were you, or like you were in your school days or something?
Yeah, I was in my 11th standard.
11th standard. And then you were, taking tuitions and classes parallelly. And then you thought of computers, and again, you changed it to MBA in HR.
Yeah.
So, what I feel would be the takeaway for our audience is, it's not too late. Even if you are in graduation and you feel that this is not the right career for me, you can still you still have time, and you can make change your mind and take the move accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's never too late. In fact, you have a better sense of judgment once you are in your graduation.
Correct. And then how did the post MBA HR journey started in corporate?
So something that I was clear in my mind about was that right from the first day of my career, preference was that I start off in the field of L&D because that was my first love, and I wanted to pursue it with whatever I have I have within me, all my strengths put to test, and I was lucky enough to get that chance. While I would candidly accept that my first job was in the e-learning industry, and that wasn't really traditional L&D or classic L&D, so to say. I was more behind the scenes, like you are behind the camera sometimes, doing all that you can so that the movie looks good on the in the theater. But I think I enjoyed that piece as well. I started off as a at a very simple level. I was a coordinator to begin with, where my job in simple terms was to coordinate the e-learning journeys that a lot of working professionals chose as a part of their distance learning education piece. So we used to work with multitude of universities across India and abroad, where my job was to help them clear their learning journey or clear their graduation or post-graduation, whichever course they've applied for, and help them wherever they are stuck. So I actually administered their learning journey from start to finish.
So was it something like a counselor sort of a job, or no?
No, I think my job began after the counseling was done. So I was never into convincing, or
helping them, what would be the better stream for them, anything of that sort?
No, so that was taken care of by the sales team. So I was never into sales, and that has never been my passion or my go-to or my forte for that matter. My job began after they had enrolled for their courses.
So they have decided.
They've decided. The decision is already made. So my job was into administering the entire learning journey, right from the time they enroll till the time they pass out. So that was my very first job. And I enjoyed thoroughly. That was how I moved into e-learning gradually. And from e-learning then into traditional L&D or classic L&D.
Okay, sure. And during this, tenure in corporate, so would like to know two things from you. One is memorable experiences in this entire tenure, and second is challenging experiences, along with your learnings and how you got over those challenges.
Where do I start? So I think I've loved every bit of my career, and there have been enormous amount of memorable experiences. And just to name a few, whenever I've had the opportunity to design something from scratch, like for example, my second job was something that I enjoyed the most. It was in the healthcare sector.
Right.
And I was very candidly told in my interview that, while we are hiring you as an L&D lead here in the healthcare industry, or it was a chain of hospitals.
Right.
While we are hiring you with a very conscious thought in mind, let us very honestly accept that the department in itself needs to be built from scratch. And I think I really loved that honesty in the interview itself.
Correct.
And there is no greater joy than having the opportunity to create something, build something from scratch.
Absolutely.
So I had that opportunity to build an entire framework of the department that I ran, hire my first team member in the team, and then of course the journey continued. I worked with that company for 8 years.
Great.
And when I look back, I remember that first day when the department didn't exist. I mean, there was just one table and a chair kept there, and from there till the time I moved to
I'm remembering Mission Mangal movie and how the project started. So something like that probably. That is how you started.
So that was, I think, one of the most memorable experiences in my life. I mean, the bigger memorable experiences in my life. Other than that, there have been many, of course, on a day-to-day basis. I think I'm really grateful that I get to do what I love to do.
Right.
And the journey has been great so far. And having said that, I've had equal amount of challenges as well. One challenge that it's a little interesting to share, but something that I've always faced right from the initial days of my career is that whichever team I've had, any team members that I've had, I've always been younger to them.
Is it?
Yeah. So my team members have been elder to me in age, and that today, of course, it doesn't matter because I've myself also grown over a period of time.
Right.
I think it's natural human psychology or tendency to take a younger person a little less seriously, maybe for lack of a better word.
Correct.
So I did face that in the initial stages of my career. But I think, it also helped me push myself further because I felt the need to take those extra efforts to prove myself. And, knowledge overpowers everything. So I ensure that I learn every day. And especially being in a department like L&D, I think learning starts from home. So that has always been my motto.
So knowledge overpowers everything, I think. This is the key takeaway from this question. Yeah, I completely understand, and I can imagine when you have a manager who is a little more, elder than you, it becomes very natural, and we are completely okay with it.
Yeah.
But when you got to know that, my manager is, younger than me, I can imagine it must be a little challenging. Okay, so if someone is facing this challenge, what suggestion or advice would you like to give audience who is watching this? And if they are facing similar challenges, any, 1 or 2 pointers that you would like to tell them? First is, of course, knowledge that you mentioned. Anything else that you would like to tell?
So apart from knowledge, 2 things. One is keep it professional. All right. And at the same time, there's a paradox that lies there. While you keep it professional, also take efforts to build that connection, build that bond with your own team. You can never succeed as a leader without the help of your team.
Correct.
If your team doesn't exist, you will never be a leader, honestly. And you are what you are because of the kind of efforts that they put in and the kind of outcome that they generate.
Right.
So it's extremely important, and regardless of your age, I believe, it's just that in the case where you are younger than your team, maybe you'll have to put in that little extra effort in doing that.
Okay.
But it's extremely important to keep it professional, 1, and 2, ensure or exert that little effort to build that connection and bond with your team. So that if there's trust that persists between both parties, I think the overall journey is smoother
and
better.
Great perspective. So takeaway I think is be professional, but at the same time have that connection, have that personal bond with your team members.
Yeah.
However, your most of the career is in healthcare industry.
Yeah.
So would like to know more about your experience in L&D in healthcare industry.
Yeah. So I get asked this question quite often, and not very positively so. You know, a lot of times people are unaware, and rightly so, you know, people are unaware as to what L&D would do in a healthcare sort of an industry. So I used to head L&D for a chain of hospitals. We were a chain of 11 hospitals and, laboratories and other associated businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been asked this question multitude of times that, and to quote a few people in Hindi, कि HR क्या करता है हेल्थ केयर में या L&D के लोग क्या करते हैं हेल्थ केयर में. So, you know, I've always found that question very amusing. While I understand that, you know, we as common people don't know how the business of a hospital functions.
Correct.
And we've never been to a hospital. We usually don't go to a hospital just like that unless there's an emergency or, a dire need to visit a place like that. But at the end of the day, healthcare is a business, right? Just like any other business that we are into. And HR is needed all the more in a healthcare setting, especially even L&D for that matter, than I believe in any other industry. The sole purpose or the sole reason why I would say that is because we deal with human lives there, right? And just imagine that, you know, you go to a restaurant and you order your favorite dish, all right? And somehow you don't like it.
Okay.
All right. And what would you usually do? I mean, just a question. What would you usually do?
Either I would mention that I've not liked it. I'll share the feedback, or maybe I'll not go to that restaurant again. If I'm very unhappy with service or the taste.
So that would probably be, and you're right. I mean, that would probably be your last option.
Right.
For me, I always think that, you know, if I've gone to a restaurant and I ordered something I didn't like, I would give in a feedback, but I may not take a harsh decision of not ever visiting that restaurant ever again, or, you know, leaving a bad review or something of that sort, because it's just a dish at the end of the day.
Right.
Honestly, I may visit again. I may order something else next time.
Right.
I may not take it as seriously as I would in case of a hospital. If you go to a hospital, you meet a doctor, you meet a team of nurses, you meet a team of paramedic technicians, and you have a horrible experience there. You would never visit that hospital ever again because that has caused harm to your life, right? And you can never take a second chance with a hospital. The way you would give a second chance to a restaurant, you can never do that in case of a hospital. And
I'm just imagining the impact.
Yeah. And I think it's extremely important that the people who are serving you in a hospital setting are prepped up, are absolutely skilled with the latest knowledge, latest technology, or dire in need competencies for that matter to take care of you as a human being. You know, gone are those days when you visited a hospital only to meet a doctor, take a few tablets and come out. Now, right from the time you park your car in a hospital, everything is an experience. Right? You wouldn't want to go to a hospital where parking is an issue, because somebody is not well in your family and you would need quick help.
Right.
So you would expect the hospital to even have, parking attendants who would help you quicken that process. Then probably right from the time you visit the reception desk, then you meet up with the actual doctor, then you meet up with a few other associated medical professionals. Maybe you visit the pharmacy to collect your medicines. Then you come back to the billing desk to pay your, fees or charges. And then you come back to the parking area to take your car and go home, or take your bike and go home. Right. So it's an entire cycle of experience which will make or break your impression of whether you want to visit this place ever again or not. We as L&D professionals help you give that experience. So that is the sole purpose of L&D in a healthcare setting. We ensure that all the service representatives in the hospital setting are fully skilled. They have the right competencies within them. They have the right behavioral traits within them to take care of you as a human being first, and then as a patient later. Secondly, as far as knowledge is concerned, we had a full-fledged team within my, within my purview, or within my circle of influence, where we had structured training programs to train our nurses, to train our paramedical technicians, to train our junior doctors, even senior consultants for that matter sometimes, right? And pharmacists, and you name anybody and everybody who works in a healthcare setting. So I think L&D had all the more significance in a healthcare setting because you could never take a risk there.
Right.
You would never want to allocate a nurse or a doctor to a patient who you feel is not fully prepped up, because you can't take that risk. And especially, first, it's morally wrong to do that. And secondly, also with the growing awareness that people have now, the growing presence of social media, and in general, the knowledge awareness that people have, I don't think it's the wise decision to take. So in a healthcare setting, I think HR and L&D play a much bigger role and a more significant role than I believe in any industry, I feel.
So while you were explaining, I was just imagining you are giving a training to a doctor.
Yeah.
Now, someone who is, given so much of respect in our society. So in terms of acceptance, did you face any challenge like, mujhe mat sikhao, something of that sort? Or all experiences were good and, they were ready to acknowledge and, accept what you were trying to tell them?
So I'm not going to lie, I found both cases.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely human tendency.
Yeah, again, human tendency. So somebody who's more experienced than you, somebody who is in such a noble profession.
Exactly.
And what could be greater than saving lives? There is no other profession that I think exists in the world than saving anybody's life. And training such a person or giving that piece of knowledge to such a person comes with its own sense of responsibility and a lot of challenge as well. But again, here I would say that there are two things. So one, you get an expert on board. It's a message to all the L&D professionals that gone are those days when you ran all the workshops on your own.
Okay.
There are multiple, industry experts available out there. Right. There are mentors available out there. There are coaches available out there. There are people who have been there, done that, who have decades of experience doing what they do. Get such people on board so that, again, you live up to that piece that I shared a couple of minutes ago. That knowledge is power.
Correct.
Right. I would never attend a workshop where I feel that the trainer or the facilitator doesn't have the required knowledge to train me. It would be a waste of the audience's time, for lack of a better word.
Correct.
So get such people on board so that you really add value to their lives. Don't train for the sake of training. As the output of your training, there needs to be some kind of behavioral change, some kind of value that you add to that person's life, professionally and personally both. So I think that's number one. And number two, it also depends a lot on how you communicate that need to that particular person, especially in case of doctors or any such senior professionals. It's very important how you communicate to them that there is a need that is felt, and all that magic lies in the communication. So here's where the reinforcement from the senior leadership comes in. The way you run your communication plan or the way you run your promotion campaign for that workshop would turn things around.
Great. Would like to know from you any, amazing or memorable experience wherein you have trained some senior doctor or senior consultant, and he or she shared the positive feedback. Oh, this angle we never thought of. Probably something of soft skills or anything of that sort. Yeah. Wherein they were technically very sound and expert in their areas. But is it something that was lacking in the way they speak, or any such feedback that you got and you feel you felt good about your profession?
Yeah, I've always felt great about my profession. That's one. And two, I've had numerous such feedbacks. We ran very limited workshops for very senior consultants because you don't need to, honestly. And L&D needs to be a very targeted intervention. I always felt that, treating L&D like a blanket solution to all the problems is not wise. And it's not advisable. Because that will only lead the business to failure. But using L&D as a strategic tool to bridge the gap wherever there is a problem, that is advisable, and that would be the right thing to do. So we ran multitude of workshops for junior doctors those which are called, clinical assistants, or those who assist the senior doctors or senior consultants in a healthcare setting. So we run a lot of workshops from them, more behavioral in nature than technical.
Right.
And after every workshop, we've had multitude of doctors coming in and telling us that, please arrange more such workshops for us. And this does give us an edge over the others. It helps us become better individuals, while we are already good at what we do as medical professionals. But that sense of behavioral change, or that sense of doing better for someone and making a difference in somebody's personal life, I think that has helped create that level of experience as well in the healthcare setting.
Okay. If I have understood correctly, you were mentioning about training need identification.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the key.
Yeah.
So professionals from L&D basically should focus more on training need identification.
Absolutely.
And that is across industries. It's not only for healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the first step in your training cycle. If we go by the books, training is a 5-step process where you start off with training need identification, then you move on to content design, then you move on to actual delivery of the session, then you move on to taking feedback or measuring the ROI, and then again making changes and go back to TNI. So it's a cyclic process. And I'm sure all the HR professionals out there already know about it. They've read it many times in a lot of HR books. But I always say that to all the students as well, that nothing that you learn in your textbooks would be irrelevant. You would get an opportunity to implement everything that you learn in your textbooks if you start taking it seriously in your career.
Right.
So as you rightly mentioned, Deepa, training need identification is the first step and the most crucial one in the entire cycle, because if you go wrong there, the entire cycle would collapse.
Correct. So you were mentioning about your MBA, theoretical knowledge, and we should apply it in our corporate life. So, okay, we have learned something and we started our career, but now it's been like few years that we learned, right?
Yeah.
However, it is equally important that we stay updated with current trends, and we stay updated with skills, what is happening in our industries, respective industries, whatever we are into.
Yeah.
So what do you do to stay updated? Any specific sources that you would like to share today?
Yeah. So while I will name a few sources, like the most common ones would be Harvard Business Review, or reading blogs and articles on HR Bartender, or maybe People Matters, SHRM.
Right.
These are all very AIHR for that matter. These are your go-to sources for knowledge. But I think more importantly, it's important to take on as many stretch assignments as you can. And I've done that personally in my career as well. So I never restricted myself to pure L&D, where I'm only involved in designing learning programs and executing them. But I always stretched myself beyond that. There are many peer functions which are very closely associated with L&D, L&D being one of those peer functions, like talent management in general, or, right from the time you hire a employee in the company till the time he or she moves out of the company, L&D can intervene at multiple touch points. Here's where I also got a chance to take care of performance management in the organization, which is again very closely linked with learning and development. So taking on such stretch assignments within your own sphere of influence in your own company, I think that would give you a much better exposure than any theoretical source of knowledge. And I'm not saying that theory will not help you. Theory will help you. It will strengthen the foundation of your knowledge, or, in general, your career. But I think applying it in practice through various smaller projects or assignments, that would give you the edge over the others.
Great. Again, a great key takeaway, I feel. Stretch assignments, it's something we should focus on.
Yeah.
So Neha, for a shorter span in my career, I have handled T&D as a role, as one of the function, as in one of the role that I must say in HR generalist. And the challenge that I faced that time was, we literally had to push employees to participate. They were not, ready to come and sit in for the training.
Yeah.
So is it the same now also in your industry also? How is your experience, and what do you do to, ensure that employees come and participate?
I think it's such a nice question, and I really want to take some time on it.
Sure.
One, I would say very candidly accept that times have changed. And yes, what you're saying is absolutely true. It did exist. Even today, it exists in pockets where you have to push employees to attend workshops, attend trainings, complete those mandatory training hours. But honestly, as a very passionate L&D professional, I don't believe that's the right way to do.
Okay.
Learning should never be forced. Unless and until your company has enough incentives around learning, you need to have the very culture within your organization to create that pull factor.
Okay.
The first thing to do in that case, and while I agree that yes, the challenge exists, but the first thing that to do in this case is to link learning and development to your own personal career path.
Okay.
And that is where I think some organizations don't do well. And that's where you end up pushing people into classrooms or forcing them to complete their mandatory learning hours. I think gone are those days. There's no point in pushing an employee to complete those 48 hours or 50 hours of learning in a year's time or whatever, 6 months time, if it's not going to add any value to his or her life. Otherwise, it's just going to be on an Excel sheet maybe, or on some dashboard that's being presented to the senior leadership.
Exactly. Like I have seen organizations, Neha, wherein they make it mandatory and it is the last day. And of course, there are, some training modules which are online available, and after that they have to give some tests. So they will not bother to see the module. They'll just ask the answers to questions to their colleagues. And it just becomes a tick mark activity. And, I understand L&D professionals like you are investing their time in preparing all of this. But end of the day, it doesn't help much because it is not the way how it should be, what you say,
managed.
Executed.
In general, managed.
Correct.
I think it's really sad. And all the efforts, time, money spent in designing those modules is gone, down the drain if that's the approach that a team has taken. Honestly, the first and foremost thing, as I said, you must link it to an individual's goal plan.
Okay.
Even prior to linking it to a goal plan, have you told him or her, why are we doing this? Have you answered the question why? Imagine yourself to be a random employee, maybe working around some softwares in a company or maybe on a shop floor for that matter. And your HR telling you that, you have to complete these 4 trainings this month. So you're basically communicating itself in a fashion that it's a mandatory requirement you have to do it. But why am I supposed to do it? How is it going to help me as a professional? First, at least if I'm an employee in your company. And how is it going to add value to my life? Have you told me why? So if that why is not answered, you've lost the participant right there. And then it will obviously become a tick mark activity. So I think explaining the why is very important. 2, as we discussed a couple of minutes ago, the right need identification. Here's where you feel the need to push people, right? If you have not identified the needs properly, then you will end up pushing people in the classroom because they're not convinced anyway. So the first step in the entire L&D cycle has gone wrong. So I think that's where the most attention needs to be paid to. 3rd, have you made it convenient for your participants? Gone are those days where traditional classroom workshops were the only solution to your learning needs. Have you made it convenient? Do you have any bite-sized content? Do you have any content that the person can just go through on his or her own mobile for that matter? Is there an app-based learning available? Is there a blended learning technology available? If you have not made it convenient, then again,
one thing I didn't understand. You mentioned about blended. So what exactly?
So blended would be a combination of classroom and online trainings. So there could be a part of the curriculum or a part of the content that could be self-study based. And you don't really need a facilitator out there teaching that in a traditional classroom setup. But there could be a part of the content which needs to be taught in a traditional setup like that. So maybe divide your content accordingly and figure out what part could be more to do with an online approach, through a digital learning methodology, and what part would you want to cover in a classroom sort of a setting where you need a facilitator to guide, to handhold, or to teach a few things here and there, or impart that wisdom. So it's very important that you provide convenience as well. Everybody is busy. Let's accept that. And for them to integrate learning into your daily work life, all of these things matter the most. And lastly, if you've taken care of all of these things already, lastly, it's very important that your programs are sponsored by your senior leadership, right? It so shouldn't happen that L&D is operating in silos where you feel that, your people need this, but the senior leadership has no buy-in whatsoever. So maybe you've not had a good marriage between, your senior leadership and your vision. So it's very important that you take them on board and they become sponsors, they become your, they champion your programs. So if it's coming from the senior leadership's desk, it will carry more gravitas, it will carry more weightage, it will be taken more seriously by the employees.
Sure. Valid points, I think, and we all must give it a thought. The next challenge that I feel is like right now for this podcast also, I'm facing a challenge in terms of people come and, they see the first thing that they'll notice is what is the duration of the video.
Yeah.
So how does it impact L&D as a function? This reduction in attention span, I'm sure it must have affected your function as well.
Yeah.
So how has been your experience, and most importantly, what you do to, have that attention span?
Yeah. It depends upon which methodology are we talking about, but let's take an example of the most common one, which is your regular classroom workshops.
Okay.
Now, the kind of workshops that we run here in my present organization are mostly full-day workshops, where an employee is expected to spend around 7 to 8 hours in a classroom setting, and then that topic is delivered in, by a facilitator. Now, here's where it becomes interesting. One, if you've taken care of the buy-in part and if the participant is himself or herself interested to be a part of that session, half the battle is won.
Right.
All right. The rest of the half of the battle is that depends upon one, the quality of facilitator that you bring in. He or she needs to be a real expert and you need to have just the right person doing the right kind of job. If you falter there, then the battle is lost right there. Two, you need to ensure that there's a blend of theory and experiential learning both. So if you keep the entire format very theoretical, where somebody's standing and running slides over slides, honestly, the attention span would go off in a matter of minutes for that matter. So here's where you bring in more case study based learning. You introduce methods like group learning, peer learning, role plays, simulations, certain activities, and all of these activities with a purpose, not just for the sake of playing games or, nothing frivolous for that matter, but something that is very relevant to the topic at hand. So I think all of these methods put to practice hook the people till the end. And most importantly, adult learning comes with its own challenges. People don't want to be taught in a monologue kind of a setting. People would want to interact with you. People would want to share their problems with you. People would also want to share a bit of their solutions with you, what has worked, what has not worked in their careers. So an open platform where people can talk, can share their thoughts in a classroom setting, that keeps people hooked on till the end.
So interaction is the key probably. Okay. There is one concept called succession planning. I'm not sure if, everyone who is watching this episode is aware of it. So I would like to, know from you, how do you define succession planning and, what exactly is the concept?
Yeah. I think it's one of the most crucial and in need practices in HR. To explain that in the simplest possible terms, you are ensuring that as and when your senior leadership moves out of the system, not just senior leadership, but certain more critical positions in your organization, they move out of the system for whatever reasons. They could either retire or they may choose to go their own way, choosing their own career paths. You have somebody already prepped up within the system or within the organization who is almost ready to take up that position. If not fully ready, at least almost ready to take up that position. So that entire exercise is nothing but succession planning, ensuring that you have a successor available for the critical positions in your organization. that entire process starts with identifying the positions first.
Correct.
And let's face it, if you have 100 positions in your company, not all are going to be critical.
Absolutely.
Critical are those who directly impact your business. If there's a problem there, it will be a bottleneck for the business. It'll impact the revenue. It'll impact the overall engagement.
Deliverables.
It'll impact the overall outcome of the business. So identify those critical positions first. Once you've identified, also figure out how do you tap people who are your high potentials.
Okay.
Now, there are various methodologies, of course, involved in identifying the high potentials in your company. It cannot be only based on somebody's judgment.
Okay.
I mean, I may feel that my team member is a high potential. I may or may not be right.
Right.
So there are scientific tools, methodologies available to validate that. There could be assessment centers. There could be structured behavioral interviews. You could also have certain career aspiration discussions with the person himself or herself. Otherwise, you'll end up planning a career for them and they are not interested. So there needs to be a coherence there as well. There could be psychometric assessments in place, performance evaluation in place, and various other tools and techniques to ensure that you have identified the right kind of people as high potentials. And basis that, then you zero down on your successors for these critical positions. Here's where L&D team plays a big role, where your job as L&D professional would be to ensure that you design a good succession plan for these identified high potentials and ensure that the plan progresses as per your, as per the business needs. So the entire journey is designed and administered both by the L&D team.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. Point number one is, if you have identified someone who is having that potential, so do we disclose it to him that, okay, we have identified you as a, probably so-and-so, or maybe that position, if need be, we may utilize you for that particular position. Do we disclose it, or is it done like quietly, or how is it?
Yeah, it's a good question. That would differ per company.
Okay.
And that is extremely crucial. The way you communicate and what you communicate would change the entire game here. So personally, I would prefer not disclosing it like entirely, where you tell the person that, hey, you may replace a particular individual whenever time comes. But it's important to make the person know that you are a high potential and the company is taking efforts to build your skill sets, to help you hone your competencies and to help you grow in the ladder. Okay. So you're showing a career progression to him or her, and I think that should be enough. And it's also important to keep this person engaged throughout their learning journey, because it so shouldn't happen that you're prepping the person for a particular role and then he or she thinks otherwise.
Exactly. That is what I was thinking of, because if organization is taking effort, investing in that particular resource because he has that potential. And in today's world, we know the attrition percentage that we are having, and business is such volatile nowadays. Like every other day there is something or else is happening. So in this scenario, it becomes very challenging to implement succession planning.
Yeah, it is important. Challenging, but again, I think you can't take away the significance of the activity. So it's very important that you do it. Because in the absence of succession planning, you will end up using your creamiest talent, and then a talent deficit, I think, can literally make or break an organization. I mean, the right set of talent will make an organization, and the absence of it would break an organization. So I think that's very, very important that you do it. So
for example, even if we go wrong in succession planning, we'll at least have something rather than having nothing, rather than having no succession planning at all. Even if there could be one or two cases wherein, we have invested and, resources going away. But still, and that's natural. That's natural.
That's okay. And, you cannot ever stop people from choosing their own career paths, making their own personal choices. You can never stop them. No matter how shiny your overall plan is or how value-adding your plan is, there would be somebody who would think otherwise and who would think that, there's a better opportunity elsewhere that I would want to pursue, and so be it. It's okay. Right? So you can never achieve 100% success rate there, but it's important to start. Start small, but start. That's very important.
Great. Now, from you, I would like to understand, Neha, typically how the role progresses in L&D. So, for example, if I'm not wrong, you start usually as a trainer, or who is someone who is conducting trainings, maybe on a short scale or small scale, probably with a limited audience. You have the training module ready and you just have to go and deliver. This is what my understanding is. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And how the role progresses over the period of time. So now you're heading L&D. So how the progression happened over the period of time?
Honestly, what you're saying is true. In a lot of companies out here, I've also personally observed that, you start off as a trainer. And honestly, that should never be the case.
Okay.
It takes a lot of expertise. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of knowledge, wisdom to be a facilitator. And not everybody has it within them. And let's face it, I mean, there are some people who are naturally good at it and some who are not.
Correct.
So just because we are pursuing a career in L&D does not mean that we start off as a trainer. We should never, in fact, start off as a trainer. Personally, I feel that probably nearing my 40s or maybe late 50s is when I would really, when I've had enough, and again, age no bar, but when I've had enough knowledge or wisdom, that's when I feel I'm truly ready in the real sense. I would be ready to, stand in front of 50 people who are, equally experienced for that matter. And then I would want to share a word or two there. Having had no experience in general and simply narrating a presentation is not training. So it really, it is a painful thing for me as an L&D professional if you're starting a career as a trainer. Yes, I facilitated in my early days, but those were simple programs like, your onboarding or your induction or topics around that, where it's more of a factual delivery than wisdom in true sense.
Right.
Yeah. I feel in regular settings or in most average companies, you would start off probably as a L&D associate or a coordinator sort of a role, where you get to manage the entire administration of L&D. That's behind the cameras, where you get to organize trainings, ensure that you have the right kind of participation, maintain analytics, dashboards, and all of that. I mean, the simple things.
More of a coordination job?
Sort of. I mean, if you're just starting afresh and if that's your very first job. And again, that would really differ per individual, depending upon their skill set, their competencies, their knowledge, the kind of academic qualification that they've had. So it would really change per person. As you evolve in your profession, you would get a chance to contribute not only to facilitation for that matter, but also in the real L&D strategy. So you will get to, practice instructional design, where you design curriculum, you design content, you design courses, various learning programs, learning journeys for the employees. You get to do a lot of stakeholder management, where you meet people, you understand the business needs there. So you get a holistic perspective of where the business is doing well, where it's not doing well. So partnering with the business to understand all of that, putting the right strategies in place, depending upon where is the need, finding the right pedagogy for learning. So all of that would come at a slightly later stage in your life, when you really gain sufficient knowledge in the initial stages.
So knowledge along with maturity, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that comes with time. Like you cannot expect the same maturity who is from someone who is just passed out and someone who has spent 10 years in corporate.
Again, I would feel that it totally depends, because I think maturity and age, while there is a direct connection between the two, but it also depends upon the kind of upbringing that you've had, the kind of overall life journey that you've had. You find a lot of kids out there who are very well mature to take those decisions, and vice versa as well. You may find a lot of adults out there who are
not matured.
Immature, for lack of a better word. So I mean, it totally depends upon the individual.
Sure. So Neha, while we discussed about the cycle of L&D, you mentioned about training effectiveness. So would like to know more about it from you. Like, how do you do that? How the activity is done?
Yeah, so that's one area where we get, I mean, I've also been asked this question quite a few times in a lot of different forums. And how do you measure effectiveness? Is it really required? And is it even possible to measure L&D effectiveness? Right. The answer is yes to all three questions. One, it is extremely important because there's a lot of money, time, effort being people invested in general, the field of L&D or HR for that matter. So it's important to show to the business that we are really adding value, and we are helping the business, or we are enabling the business in the real sense. So L&D as an enabler has a lot of accountability, responsibility on its shoulders. So it's very important to prove your mettle there. Two, it is certainly possible to measure the effectiveness. It depends upon, it would vary program to program. But there are certain matrices which every L&D professional should measure. And apart from the operational ones, like your man days training or man hours training, which I think most companies would measure. But other than that, or maybe coverage or participation, that's okay. But maybe most importantly, behavioral impact. Has it really changed the behavior of the employees? If you're running a behavioral intervention, if you're running a technical intervention with the population that you're dealing with, has it really impacted the business outcome in the real sense? Have they really shown the application of that knowledge in their jobs, in their daily routine? Have they done that? It is very important to check that. If the answer is no, then there was some problem in the kind of learning journey that you designed. Maybe the content wasn't suitable. Maybe it was not fully validated by the business. Maybe you didn't measure it well. There's something wrong in the entire cycle. So it's important to go back, fix the basics, and run an intervention again. So I think that's equally important.
Okay. While you were speaking, a thought just struck me. For behavioral, it is very difficult that I change in a day, right? So is there something like you do, you do check after certain intervals, like maybe after a month, after 3 months, something like that?
So you're right. For behavioral interventions, one should never conduct tests and MCQ style exam papers, because honestly, that's not going to solve your problem. What works best is, in layman's terms, if I've been trained on a subject like communication skills, for that matter, something very commonly done in most organizations, how would you know if I've really improved? And what part of my communication was not serving well in my job? So again, do not apply a blanket approach where I'm just trained on the overall concept of communication. Identify the niche area where I was not doing well. Probably I couldn't listen actively. Maybe my body language was not accurate. Maybe I was not assertive enough. What part of my communication was not working well? Identify the right need first. Build an intervention around that, and then check whether it's working or not. So to answer your question, we could have delayed evaluations spread across a period. Unless and until I show a visible change in my job. If you are my manager, you would never say that, Neha has truly improved if a visible change is not seen. So it's important for you to monitor my progress journey as hypothetically as a manager. Be fully invested in my learning journey and not leave it entirely to the L&D team or whichever trainer is involved. And observe me over a period of 30 days, probably 60 days, probably 90 days, and figure out if I've shown any behavioral changes. Have I improved? Figure out matrices like maybe the customer satisfaction score. If I was a person at the reception, for that matter, just hypothetically speaking, and if my communication was not found good or not found up to the mark, I'm sure it would have directly impacted the clients that I deal with or the customers that I deal with. So have the number of negative feedbacks reduced over a period of time. If yes, great, I've shown that visible improvement. If not, then go back to basics, fix the intervention, and do it again. So
now, while you were explaining with example of communication skill, like in communication skill also there could be different parameters. So practically, how difficult is it, and how do you manage when you are handling it at a for major crowd, I must say? So there would be hundreds of employees, thousands of employees.
Yeah.
So training need identification, I'll go back to that concept. So if you have if there are say 20 participants, each of them may have a different need.
Yeah.
So how do you do that then? Because if you don't have to, generalize the training, it is practically impossible that you sit one-on-one with each one of them, right? But then how do you tackle this? Because I see a gap here, because if we are talking about training need identification, you have 20 different needs who are your participants. So how do you work on it then?
Yeah, it's a good question. Here, again, a couple of things come at play. One, you should never have a batch of people who have completely varied needs sitting together in the same classroom, which means the batch organization, and I'm talking about a classroom setting currently, which means the batch organization itself is wrong.
Okay.
All right. You should always have people who have similar training needs bundled together in a batch, so that the facilitator can do his or her best job in ensuring that those particular needs are catered to. Having said that, yes, the challenge would still exist, where it would be practically impossible to have 20 people and who have the exact same needs. That would never happen. So while a few elements in the content could be generic, but there are various other methodologies that you can apply.
Okay.
If I am not doing well in certain parts of communication, you can always assign me a coach. I need not be trained in a traditional classroom setting all the time. Right? There are a lot of online modules available. There could be AI generated, depending upon the kind of aspirations that I have, depending upon the kind of interests or likes that I have. Of course, married with the business needs. There could be a lot of courses available which are prompted by AI or other technologies out there. There could be a mentor assigned to me. There could be certain self-study assignments given to me. I could shadow an expert, maybe. So there are multiple ways to cater to those niche requirements. And having said that, I understand it's a lot of effort for the L&D team, but please take that effort. It's very important. Otherwise, arranging generic workshops where the content is really too blanket or too common is not going to land well, and that's not going to add sufficient value to a person's life in general.
Understood. Thank you for sharing this perspective. So change in technology, or AI to be more specific, has impacted almost every field. Like all industries are getting affected, and there are some or other changes because of AI. So what are your views on changes in HR or in L&D in particular because of AI?
I think it has only helped us. So while I know there are various notions around it that AI is here to replace or all the other noise around it, I believe AI is here not to replace but to aid, but to help, but to support. So I think that's the key message that I want to give here. AI has actually made life easy in numerous ways. It has actually helped us transform, and it's a disruptive change, honestly. It has helped us to transform the entire employee experience, right from the time he or she joins, so hire to retire, the entire cycle of an employee, and the kind of touch points that you have with him or her throughout the employment cycle. I think AI has really transformed that in true sense. Right from using AI chatbots during your hiring practices, being in touch with the candidate till the time he or she joins, that's taken care of. Even after the employee joins, the generic help desk that you have with, where the employees would want to ask certain queries or questions to their HR teams, that's being taken care of by the AI chatbot now. And HR has more time to partner with business on strategic initiatives rather than getting involved in routine operational or administrative sort of tasks or activities. So I think that AI has also helped create individual development plans, personalized IDPs for people. It is truly transforming L&D in the real sense. You find a lot of platforms out there, like LMS, LXP platforms out there who are AI enabled. They can generate analytics at the click of a button. So again, that is something that has really transformed HR over a period of time, and there's a long way to go. Honestly, we are yet to absorb AI in the in the true sense.
It's
Yeah.
a nascent stage.
Yeah, it is at the nascent stage. As much as it is thrilling and exciting, I know it is equally scary. It's a lot of convenience, all of a sudden. So
I think it is something unknown as of now. Like we are not very
True.
sure,
True.
what exactly it will do
yeah,
and
yeah,
how it will do,
yeah.
and what
If-
would be the after effects.
True. If used in the right sense, it can truly support you, and it will free your time to take on more qualitative work, more value-adding work, and which I think HR has always struggled,
Right.
since the time it was called a personnel department till the time we have moved to 2025 today, where we call our HR people as HR BPs.
Right.
So business partnering, they would actually be able to partner with the business if at all they have the right technology support.
Right.
So data-driven decision making, that's being made possible by AI. So I think, even employee experience for that matter, sentiment analysis, that's something that AI is helping us to do. Mental health.
employees.
Yeah, I think that's great and that's amazing. Yeah. So it totally depends upon how you leverage it.
Right.
So AI is not here to replace. I feel, and that's my personal opinion, I feel AI is here to support. And for an HR professional, I don't think we ever need to worry, because
Human touch is something.
absolutely, you can never do without a human touch. Just like we call, suppose if your SIM card is not working and you call the customer care helpline, probably a couple of rounds of calling would be done, as in the response would be given by the AI assistant or a chatbot for that matter. But then you always press 9 to speak to a person, right? I mean, that's the change that's the differentiating factor.
Sure.
So, yeah, I think that will always stay.
Great. Okay, you mentioned something about ROI when you were discussing about the training cycle. So while I understand training effectiveness or impact of HR or what exactly HR is doing, these are the questions, and we can't, give answer in terms of numbers.
Yeah.
However, there must be something that, we can definitely say that, okay, this is what HR has done. So, could you tell me something, some of those factors or indicators, which can help management to understand how exactly HR is doing, or how exactly L&D department is doing? So, anything of that sort.
Yeah, there are various such indicators, and while I know giving a number to it or putting a number to it may not always be accurate. Of course, it can be done in various ways, but it's not really linear that way, as simple as that. So there are various indicators through which you can find out if your L&D interventions have worked or not. As simple indicators as your business outcomes, the kind of goals that you had set for the organization. Has L&D been able to enable the completion of those goals, or to enable the success? Have you been able to contribute to the success metrics of the organization? That's one. Two, it could also show in your CSAT scores, customer satisfaction scores. It could show in your employee engagement scores. It could show in your attrition numbers of the organization. It could show in the kind of headcount that you have, the kind of competency mix that you have in the organization. So all of these are very simple indicators and direct indicators of which point towards a successful business or a not so successful business. And L&D certainly contributes there. There are many others, in fact, but I think these are something that come on the top of my mind.
Right. So we are, coming to the closure of it. And before we conclude, there are a few things that I would like to ask. First is, what are the lessons that you have learned over the period of time? That is a common question that I ask, all the guests. But I think lessons vary. And from you also, I would like to understand what are the lessons that you have learned throughout your journey.
First is, I think there are only two lessons that I live by, and not really lessons, but I think they are mantras that I live by. One is love what you do.
Okay.
That is mandatory for me. If I don't love what I do, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. So it's extremely important that you truly love your work.
Right.
So that stress and all of that burnout or, won't really be at your focus, because you're truly liking every minute spent in doing what you do.
Correct.
So that's one. And two, keep a positive mindset. Okay. All right. Now that is a wise decision that it's a conscious decision that I've taken many years ago when I started off, and it doesn't come easy. Every organization would have not so good elements, right? Where you have people not supporting you, people speaking behind your back. You know, in layman terms, you call it office politics, right? So to navigate those challenging situations or difficult situations, or maybe working with a boss who is not really fully aligned with you, there are many such challenges too. Just to name a few, these are something that came on the top of my mind. What has always helped me steer them or navigate through them properly is I've always stayed optimistic. I've always made peace with the fact that not everything can work in your favor, and that's okay, right? So expecting way too much from people, others, I think, is not really advisable. I've worked with, I think, 7-8 bosses till date in the span of 12 or 13 years of my career so far. Each boss came with their own style of leadership. I took what is important for me from them. I learned what I could learn from them, and I could let go of the other pieces of leadership which didn't serve me well or which didn't suit me well. So it's important to sort of filter out the noise, and honestly, only you can do that. Nobody else can help you do that. It's your personal choice to take what you feel will help you and leave the rest. So I think, and not just with your reporting managers, but with just anybody that you work across the organization, or even the kind of work that you get throughout your career. Not all the kind of work that you get would directly contribute to the success that you would have in your career. You will get assignments which you don't like. You will get work that you are not really passionate about, and that's okay. It's a part and parcel of your career. If not anything, it will help you learn. At least you would know what you don't like. So there's some learning there in everything that you do. I think positive mindset has really helped me shape my career, and it has helped me maintain that peace of mind as well. So those are the only two mantras.
Such a fantastic approach you have, and positive approach.
Thank you.
So take what you like and let it go. What you're not liking. Okay, and one last question. Audience who is watching this episode, who wish to make a career in L&D, any advice that you would like to give them?
I think it's a very rewarding career. That's one. If you truly feel that you want to make a difference in someone's life, this is the career to be in. And of course, I mean, if you are a passionate HR professional and then you want to specialize in the field of L&D and probably pursue this as your field of expertise, it's a great field to be in. A few things that you must do is, one is stakeholder connect. Meet the business leaders as often as possible to know what is it that is not serving well to them. What are their pain areas? It's extremely important to enable the business. And that is what our core job is as L&D professionals. Our job is not to bring blanket training interventions and push them in the business that, we have an expert facilitator out here and he or she is great at this particular subject, so please send your people in a classroom setting. Please don't do that. So I think the first thing is stakeholder connect, understand where your business pain areas are, and try and figure out how can you as L&D professional bridge those gaps there. What methodologies can you apply? What approach can you take? So do that. Secondly, know more about L&D. Read a lot. Network with L&D professionals out there. You could take up stretch assignments if you're already working in an organization, maybe in the HR generalist sort of a profile, or maybe you're pursuing something else in HR. Take up stretch assignments, partner with L&D to see what they really do on the job, and figure out how you can contribute. So these are two things that I can think of. So
So that's it for today, Neha. And I must say, along with talent vibes, you got positive vibes on the show. And I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. And there were so many aspects that I had never thought of. Being from HR also, I've not done much in L&D, so there were many things that I could learn, I could understand, and it is a thought-provoking discussion. There are many things that we should give it a thought.
Yeah.
Right from approach, attitude till domain knowledge.
Yeah.
So it was great talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And keep watching Talent Vibes.